My wife went out partying without me, even though I told her not to. Later, I found out she cheated. I stumbled upon this forum and am looking for some support. Here's some background. I'm 30 and my wife is 25. We've been married 3 years and together for nearly 6. We don't have any kids, and we have no real assets. We have more debt than cash in our checking account. We rent a house, and I'm the primary breadwinner, bringing home roughly $4,000 a month. She brings home around $1,000. I put in $5K, working my tail off to give her the life she deserves. Now I'm facing the unthinkable. My work family is pretty tight-knit. I've been working with them for almost 3 years, and one of my coworkers invited me to join a recreational soccer league. I've been playing in it for 2 years now. My wife would attend every one of my soccer games, which I thought was a show of support for me, but in the back of my mind, I thought she just went for the alcohol that went hand in hand with it. Most nights I had games and I would take it very light on the alcohol, but she, as a spectator, would get pretty loose during the games and ride. I've been working for almost 3 years, and a coworker invited me to join a recreational soccer league. I've been playing for 2 years. My wife would attend every soccer game I played, which I thought was a show of support. But in the back of my mind, I thought she just went for the alcohol. Most nights I had games and I would have very little to drink. But she, as a spectator, would get pretty loose during the games and ride home with me pretty frequently after the games. A few of the guys and girls would get together at different places to hang out into the night. A few of the times we all came back to my place or we went to a bar, a pizza joint, etc. Well, a couple of weeks ago, a group of them were going to get together at one of the guys' houses, a city away from me. I told them all after the game that I apologized, but I wouldn't be going. I'd work early the next morning. So, on the way home, she texts one of the guys I thought was my buddy, asking if he'd give her a ride over. She asked if it was okay for her to go while I was driving home, and I was like, nah, I gotta work in the morning, and I want to be with you tonight. She gave me the silent treatment, and when I got home, I parked in a car pulled up in front of the house. It was my buddy. She'd made the executive decision. On the way home, she texted one of the guys I thought was my buddy and asked if he could give her a ride over there. I told her no, that I had work in the morning and wanted to be with her that night. She gave me the silent treatment, and when I got home, she was there. It was my buddy, though. She had decided to go to the party, and I was pissed. I went to my buddy's car and told him I wasn't okay with this and to leave. Then my wife got out of my car and into his. They drove away, and I plugged in the dead iPad I had bought for her a few years earlier. It was old, but I knew it was connected to her messaging and social media accounts. I saw exactly where she was, and I tried staying up until I finally fell asleep that night around 3 a.m. 00 a.m. And she still wasn't home when I woke up the next morning. She was in our bed, but I had no idea when she'd come home. I got up, got ready for work, and left that morning without waking her or saying goodbye. The first and only time that had ever happened. I wanted her to know I was pissed well before I left. I grabbed the iPad and threw it in my briefcase. I got to work that day, and after a meeting and a few phone calls, I pulled out the iPad and saw it light up with a notification from a messaging app. Buddy was typing. I opened the app and saw a horrific exchange of messages that were supposed to self. I got to work that day and, after a meeting and a few phone calls, I pulled out the iPad and saw that it had a notification from a messaging app. My buddy was typing. I opened the app and saw a great exchange of messages that were supposed to self-destruct. But this app version must have been outdated, as I was able to witness in real time their conversation recanting the night before. My buddy was making references to them making love and other guys that had fun last night. I was damn near lost it, but then it got worse. I watched as my wife instructed my buddy to send her a video of him peeing, which he obliged to do. I unfortunately witnessed it. I ran out of my office and into the bathroom and vomited profusely. I was shaking. I just saw and heard enough to last me a lifetime. After spending hours chilling out at work, I was legitimately afraid I was going to hurt someone or myself. I drove home and found her still sleeping on the bed. I put my stuff down and asked her to come downstairs. I sat across from her and asked her to tell me in detail everything that happened last night, which she did, but admitted to just drinking, playing pool, and talking. After I got off work, I took a few hours to chill. I was legitimately afraid I was going to hurt someone or myself. When I drove home, I found her still sleeping on the bed. I put my stuff down and asked her to come downstairs. I sat across from her and asked her to tell me in detail everything that happened last night. She told me, but she admitted to just drinking, playing pool, and talking. I then asked her when she spoke with Buddy last. She said she had messaged him back and forth a bit that morning, but nothing in particular. Then I dropped the bomb. Would your story change if you knew I watched the entire conversation you had with him this morning? She burst into tears, and her first question was, "Are you leaving me?" She came clean and told me that she couldn't really remember that clearly, but she had sex with Buddy and another teammate last night. She said she couldn't remember much else, except that she had drinks with Buddy and another teammate last night. She said there might have been more guys, but she couldn't remember. I was grossed out. I asked if this was the first time, and she said it wasn't. One time, she said, was even in my house while I was sleeping upstairs. I was so numb to it all. I helped her pack a bag, and she left to stay with family. She begged me not to tell anyone. I was alone in my horror story, and now I'm 2 weeks out from D. I'm so lost right now. I really hope I don't end up with the worst D-. I've been through this before, but it's hard to think of anything worse than finding out your wife's been having a gangbang with guys you've brought into your lives, and that this has been going on for months, with at least one of them now blaming it all on alcohol. She says she's going to start going to AA and wants to try couples therapy. She wants us to get through this together, but I think it's a little too late. I feel all the usual pit emotions, including guilt. I don't know why, but I have a meeting with an attorney tomorrow. I'd like to think I'm making the right move, no matter how messed up she is over being an alcoholic and really wanting to work this out. I can't even talk to her without imagining her being the lunch meat in a douche sandwich. I can't trust her. I'm disgusted by her actions repeated. I'd like to think I'm making the right decision, even though she's still struggling with alcoholism and wants to work through it. I can't even talk to her without thinking of her as the lunch meat in a metaphorical sandwich. I can't trust her. I'm disgusted by her actions, which I've repeated. I deserve so much better, and I'm not perfect, but why do I feel so guilty? There's no way to reconcile this. I'm not the bad guy, am I? Any advice or words of wisdom would be appreciated. I feel like an idiot writing this all out and seeing it so clearly, but I know it's not easy to just stop caring about someone you were completely blindsided by, so please take it easy on me. I truly appreciate all the advice, concern, and positivity you've all sent my way. I realize it's been almost a month since I posted about my experience, and many people have kindly reached out to check in and want to know how I'm doing. Unfortunately, this situation has gone from horrific to unbelievably awful. I apologize in advance for what I know. This is going to be a long update, but it's the only way to get the full picture of how truly destroyed I feel. Days after the initial post, I took your advice and made a few appointments. I saw an attorney and a legal document preparation lady to keep my options open. My wife didn't know about these meetings. FYI, we went a few days after the post with no contact directly, but she was adamant that this time she really was going to make an effort to get us to see a marriage therapist. I had been insisting upon this for months before my divorce. We tried to work through this for a day, but I knew what my choice would be. She did get us on a therapist schedule, but it was going to be about a week and a half until we could get in. In that time, I was stalking her every move on that iPad. I was checking every message, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever. After a week and a half of watching her every move online, I didn't have any new evidence. I thought maybe she was being genuine when it was finally time to see the therapist. He sat us down, asked us why we were there, and after a week and a half of checking every message, Facebook and Snapchat, I had no more evidence. I thought she might be showing true remorse when it finally came time to see the therapist. He sat us down, asked us why we were there, and I told him the story in her own words. She left out some of the details, but most of it was there. After hearing it all, the therapist turned his head to me and asked how I felt about my trust in her and my marriage. I just shook my head, showing that I was shocked and in disbelief. I told her to tell him the story in her own words. She left out some of the details, but most of it was there. After hearing it all, the therapist turned his head to me and asked, "How does that make you feel about your trust in her?" How does it make you feel about your marriage? I just shook my head in disbelief and shock. Instead of answering his question, I replied, "If I don't say it out loud right now, I'm afraid I never will. There's no coming back from this for me. The marriage is over. The vows were broken. My trust is shattered. I think the only thing left to do is to get a divorce." My gut wrenched, and she completely lost it and started crying. I continued, "I don't know what can be salvaged from this relationship, but the marriage is over. I meant what I said on the altar, and I'm not being true to myself if I don't recognize this as being broken and unfixable." I felt a slight sense of relief after stating it out loud in front of her and a neutral party that I was done. I don't know what can be salvaged from this relationship, but the marriage is over. I meant what I said on the altar, and I'm not being true to myself if I don't recognize this as being broken and unfixable. I felt a slight sense of relief after saying it out loud in front of the therapist and a neutral party that I was done. The rest of the appointment was spent on him explaining to her why my feelings and my decision were completely rational given the situation and calming her down. It actually couldn't have gone better, in my opinion. He insisted on seeing us separately to see if he could help us as individuals first and maybe, in the future, perhaps years down the line. He spent the whole session explaining to her why my feelings and decision were totally rational, and he calmed her down. Couldn't have gone better, I think. He insisted on seeing us separately to see if he could help us as individuals, and maybe, in the future, as a couple. From now on, bring us together for discussion of reconciliation. I'll say it now so you don't have to worry. I don't have any intention of ever considering reconciliation, but the individual therapy might actually do me some good in the meantime. Now, before I continue, I knew I was about to embark. I'm about to start a legal journey that, if not amicable, could be disgustingly ugly and financially devastating to me, the breadwinner in a no-fault state. I've written all of this legal process out, but I'm committed until things are locked in. It's too risky to post online at the moment. The overarching point of the legal process is that I have to keep things amicable. Right now, let's fast forward roughly a week and a half. By now, we've both had at least one individual therapy session each, and she's shared her entire narrative with me. We're ending the marriage because of the breaking of vows, but we're both trying to heal ourselves right now. She's still staying with family, and I continue my obsession with constantly searching her digital presence for any sign that she's continuing her disgusting habits, as many of you suggested she would not. I'm not blaming you for this. It wasn't until one night last week that I realized there was a place I'd never checked: the App Store. I checked the app download history on her iCloud account and saw that she'd downloaded a secret texting app on her phone about 2 weeks before that evening. My gut wrenched. I realized that she'd been trying to hide some sort of messaging from me the whole time, even though I had her iPad, which she insisted I keep so I could start trusting her again. But to this day, I really don't think she realized that an app downloaded on one iCloud device can be seen in the eye was able to access history from any cloud-connected device. I needed to know what communications were within that app. I wasn't even in control of my body. Thinking back to those moments, I downloaded the app onto her iPad, tried a few of her most common login combos, and bam! The truth. She not only had been messaging Buddy on this app since after our first therapy appointment together, but they had been continuing to have sex with one another during times in which she knew I'd be out of the area. Puked, I cried. It was 3:01 weeknight morning. I went into the restroom and started grabbing prescription meds. I went back to my room with a bunch of pills that, without a doubt, would have ended my life. I sat on the edge of my bed sobbing, ready to end it. I picked up my phone and tried to call my mom. No answer. I tried to call my dad. No answer. My dad didn't answer. My sister answered. I told her what I had just discovered through sobbing, and she could tell I was on the verge of losing it. She didn't know I had the pills in my hand, but she did insist, keeping me on the phone, albeit in the middle of the night, until I had calmed down. It took about an hour, but I was finally numb again. After hanging up the phone, I went back to the bathroom, poured the pills back into one of the bottles, washed my hands, and went back to bed to try to get a couple of hours of sleep, which never came. As hours passed, I realized that I needed to go to work. I couldn't stand to be in that house or in that moment any longer. As I got dressed, I threw the bottle of pills into my briefcase, along with the iPad. Both of which, upon I went back to the bathroom, poured the pills back into one of the bottles, washed my hands, and went back to bed. I tried to sleep for a couple of hours, but I couldn't. As time went on, I realized that I needed to go to work. I couldn't stand to be in that house or in that moment any longer. As I got dressed, I threw the bottle of pills into my briefcase, along with the iPad. When I got to my office, I gave both of them to my most trusted coworker and asked him to lock them up in his desk and not return them to me no matter what, no questions asked. He obliged and gave me an understanding pat on the shoulder as I walked away. So now I've done it. I got what I was asking for. I got undeniable proof that not only is my wife a cheater, but she's also a cold. When I got to work, I gave my best friend the info, and he promised to lock it up on his desk and not look at it again. He was cool about it, and I got the feeling he was kind of relieved. So now I've got the proof I was looking for. It's pretty clear that my wife is a cheater and a liar. I spent days trying to figure out what to do with the info. Part of me wanted to call her out to everyone and let everyone know what she's really like, what she's done, and what she's still doing. But I couldn't. I'm already working on ending the marriage, but there's still a chance she could get nasty and costly as days go by, with more texts, calls, and attempts to talk to me. When she didn't answer, she finally went out of her way to stop by and check on me. I was about to lose it during the encounter. I was purposefully very vague and seemingly indifferent to her. I didn't know exactly what to do. It wasn't until she lost her temper and started yelling at me for acting weird that I gave her a chance and asked her, "Have you had any contact with Buddy whatsoever since that night?" Her response, "No. I blocked him on everything." I asked again, "Are you sure about that?" She adamantly proclaimed that she hadn't. I told her she was gross, and I'd never do that to her. I could never do that to her. Then I dropped the bomb. "So what about this app and this video I took on my phone of that app showing the conversations you two have been having this whole time, the pictures you've sent one another, the plans you've made to sneak around based on my daily schedule?" She collapsed onto the ground, sobbing and crying, begging me for something I don't know. I kept my tone indifferent. "So here's what's going to happen. I'm not going to tell anyone about this. And in exchange, you're not going to fight me at all about anything in the divorce process. I'm going to be fair even though I shouldn't have to be. But you're going to be served with the divorce papers, and then you're not going to do anything with them. Otherwise, people are going to know about this situation and why I'm being so unreasonable. Your choice." She left, and 2 days later, she was served. Since that day, I've kept my word and haven't told anyone outside of my immediate family members. But I know for a fact that she has visited him. Ever since then, every night at his place, his folks think she's at AA, but my screenshots of her location prove otherwise. Seriously, why hasn't she changed her iCloud PW? I don't know why I keep collecting evidence, but I do. I'm struggling with the anxiety of waiting for this period of time to pass until she loses her right to fight me in court, all while knowing her family thinks she's on the right path. Honestly, that's not even close to the truth. She's actually lying to all of them. What's really hurting me is how unfair it all is. She gets to spend time with her family and act like everything's normal every day, then sneak off at night to have sex with him and come home in the middle of the night to keep up appearances. Meanwhile, I go to work each day, head home to an empty house, and experience how it really feels to be alone. I'm past the point of feeling any kind of way. I've been thinking about self-harm lately, but these are tough times. I'm taking it one day at a time, hour by hour. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I'll be able to get out of this mess without losing my money and officially leave her in the dust. I don't know what I'll do after that, but I'm just trying to survive until then. Thanks for reading and for your support, advice, wisdom, and courage. You're one of the few things in my life right now. I may not know anything about you, but I trust you more than I trust my wife. Thank you, Update 2. This is my third post here and hopefully my last. The support and advice I received here helped me get through the toughest times in my life. I've waited to comment because my divorce is finally official. I don't have to hide anymore after waiting 6 long months and 1 day to see if my wife lied to me without me knowing. I've gone completely no contact, and I feel like I'm finally able to start moving forward with my life. A lot of folks followed my 2 initial posts right after D-Day, as insane and grotesque as they were. I should have known that the rest of the cooling off period would be just as crazy. So, I thought I'd share an update on what has happened since my last post. The last post I shared was 6 weeks after D-Day. I didn't mention in my post that I'd already filed the papers with the county to start the divorce process. I followed the advice of a lot of the nice Redditors who suggested that I give her back the iPad and cut all ties to devices and SL accounts that would let me obsess over what, where, and who she was doing. I knew enough. I knew what I wanted out. My approach to the divorce process may have hurt me more emotionally in the long run, but it didn't hit my pocketbook with nearly as much. The term impact seemed to make sense at the time, since everything was moving at a snail's pace. After realizing that I could never trust this woman again, I knew I had to get rid of her. But I wasn't going to pay her month over month for half the length of the marriage, which would have cost me about $2,000. The impact of the term was obvious, and it all made sense at the time. I realized that I had to get out of the marriage, but I wasn't going to pay her $2,000 per month in spousal support for half the length of the marriage. We didn't even have children together. My state would have required me to do so because it's a no-fault divorce state, and I was the breadwinner. I couldn't figure out how I was paying her a cent for what she had done to me. I got angry, thought about it, and came up with a plan to get out of the marriage and away from her as quickly and completely as possible. In hindsight, I'm not proud of the I used to use some tactics to deal with my divorce, and it worked out in the end. But I do feel like my integrity or sense of right and wrong may have taken a hit. I suppose it's just a matter of opinion. From my point of view, I think my actions were small potatoes compared to the big mess of mistrust, hurt, and anguish she caused me. Around the time of my last post, I already had the divorce papers ready and sent them to the county, but I was waiting for them to confirm it. I kept this from I used to use some tactics to deal with my divorce, and it worked out in the end. I guess my integrity or sense of right and wrong may have taken a hit, though. It's just a matter of opinion. I saw my actions as minor compared to the big mistrust, hurt, and anguish she caused me. Around the time I wrote my last post, I already had the divorce papers ready and sent them to the county, but I was waiting for them to confirm them. I didn't tell my wife, who was still living with her family. She never got to stay in my home after I first made her leave. I had set up a few times for us to meet up and talk. I wanted to convince her that I still wanted to try to salvage the relationship. It was a complete lie, but in all of our discussions, I made it clear that I thought our marriage was over. The vows had been broken, and if we truly wanted to start again, we would need to start fresh. We would need to end this marriage and start dating again. We'd court and find our way into a new, stronger relationship. I'm literally about to gag typing all of this out. I still can't believe she bought this. In fact, I was going to go out of my way to make it as easy and painless as possible for her. Hurry the process along and keep it out of the public eye. I just need to get through this phase so we can focus on the next together. I'll give you an example of what I mean. We had a mutual friend come over to my house, the house we used to live in, and play third wheel in a handoff, signature exchange, and conversation. She signed the papers she needed to seal up her documents in the envelope they came in without even scanning through them. I doubt she ever really did dig into the minutiae of those tedious legal forms because I painted myself a very pretty picture, completely absent of any. I'll give you an example of what I mean. We had a mutual friend come over to my house, where we used to live, and play third wheel in a handoff, signature exchange, and conversation. She signed the papers she needed to seal up her documents in the envelope they came in without even scanning through them. I doubt she ever really did dig into the minutiae of those tedious legal forms because I painted myself a very pretty picture, completely absent of any spousal support. Beyond splitting what was in our account at the time, this was the single largest issue that I wanted to avoid running into, paying her spousal support over the first few months. I tried to write out the need time on my own to think pretty hard to avoid seeing her, but met with her roughly 2 times a month to have dinner or meet up in a public place to make small talk and act like I gave a crap. These meetings were always in a public place, so she would. The biggest problem I wanted to avoid was spousal support. I tried to avoid paying her spousal support for the first few months by writing it off as a business expense. I tried to put off seeing her as much as possible, but I met with her about 2 times a month to have dinner or meet up in a public place to make small talk and act like I cared. I met with her in public places so she couldn't say I was trying to do something to her. I kept up appearances. I played her. I made her feel like I was truly working through my emotions and coming to grips with what happened and seeking the ability to forgive so we could reconcile. But I had no intention of doing any of that. By keeping her on the lease, I was able to cleanly remove her from my bank accounts with her actual assistance. I had her removed from the lease, and I even got all of her possessions. I moved her stuff out of the house and into a storage unit because I told her we would get a new place together, and having her stuff out of the house would make the house feel less haunting to me as I heal. Lying to her and keeping her in this state of submission and cooperation made all of the difficult separation tasks insanely easy, and she thought she was doing the right thing for us. This strategy got me through about 4 of the 6 months until I reached the light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't until sometime in early month 4 that I got a text from a family member she was living with. They knew about Buddy and the truth, but to keep up the reconciliation charade, I replied with a yes, why? And got a picture of my wife and Buddy having dinner at a restaurant in a city away with a follow. There was a text that popped up saying this was happening right then. This family member was actually meeting up with someone from CO. This whole thing got started when a family member was meeting up with coworkers for drinks after work and saw them together. I made a huge mistake here by letting my emotions run my head. I messaged my wife right then and asked if she could talk on the phone. She lied and said she was in an AA meeting and could call me as soon as she was out. I fired back with, I didn't know they had AA meetings there, and that Buddy was your sponsor. That got her attention. She called me immediately and started. I got yanked again for accusing her of stalking me. I shot back with some choice words that the mods definitely wouldn't allow on this sub. Basically, I told her off, called her some names, and told her that I had no interest in speaking with her ever again. So, during the last 2 months of the divorce, she got into a relationship with Buddy, which was private at first but eventually became public. I blocked both of them on all social media, but through various friends of ours. I got into it with her again, yelling and calling her a stalker. I told her I didn't want to talk to her ever again. For the last 2 months of the divorce, she dated Buddy. It was private at first, but eventually it became public. I blocked both of them on all social media, but I heard about it from different friends. Information trickled in, and more people started contacting me, wanting to know what was going on. Apparently, my wife was getting bolder and posting status updates and pictures of the two of them together. If someone reached out to me and asked, I would tell them as much as they wanted to know. The friendships and relationships I truly valued and wanted to salvage had to get on my side. It didn't take more than telling them the truth to do the trick, but having the support. Information came in, questions popped up, and more people started hitting me up, wanting to know what was going on. It looked like my wife was getting bolder and posting status updates and pictures of the two of us together. If someone reached out to me and asked, I'd tell them as much as they wanted to know. The friendships and relationships I truly valued and wanted to salvage had to get on my side. It didn't take more than telling them the truth to do the trick, but having the support behind me and to hear people who knew us both acknowledge that what she did to me was horrific just felt more important than the material division in the divorce itself in those moments. Definitely had people to vent to, too. If you can believe it, I vented to almost everyone I spoke with about what happened. Almost everyone I spoke with had communicated with her first, in one way or another, to find out who this guy she was posting all these pictures of was. A common denominator arose from each of those follow-ups. I had to deal with the fact that she was downplaying what happened, even though she didn't deny cheating. I felt like I had to fill in the blanks for her. All of our friends and most of her relatives were shocked, and I think they're still supportive. I found myself asking them not to. She downplayed the events, but I know for sure she didn't deny cheating. I felt like I had to fill them in on the details she chose to leave out. All of our friends and most of her closest relatives were in shock. I truly believe they chose to support me, and I found myself asking them not to rock the boat until the divorce was finalized. The more time that went by where they were together, the bolder the pictures became. The more public they went with their relationship, the more my phone rang. It got to the point where I had to ask people to please stop informing me of their developments because it was still causing me real emotional pain. Valentine's Day happened to be just a few days before. The day before the divorce was finalized and Valentine's Day, which is a day all about love, I got 3 screenshots from 3 different people of the same social media post. It showed the two of them embracing, and it was all about how amazing God is for bringing such a wonderful man into her life, and how she couldn't be happier, and that she hopes he'll be the one she'll marry someday. A door shuts, God opens a window. I got a kick out of the confused comments from extended family and her far-removed friends asking who that was. I would like to say it doesn't bother me that they're together, but it does. Deep down, I still feel a deep sense of loss, but now I also feel an absolute feeling of pure disgust and regret at how ridiculous, grotesque, and cold. I have to admit, I found the comments from extended family and her distant friends pretty confusing. They were asking who that was, and I couldn't help but feel a bit shocked by the emoji faces they sent. I don't want to come across as bothered by their relationship, but I have to admit I am. I still feel a deep sense of loss, but now I also feel disgust and regret for how ridiculous, grotesque, and cold-hearted this woman is. I feel a sickness within me for not seeing this monster right in front of me for so many years. Not to mention what a despicable human being Buddy is. I truly have no respect or energy left to comment or worry about him. He's sure to get hit by the karma train for sticking around with her, my ex. This woman is a real piece of work. I can't believe I didn't see the monster in her for so long. Not to mention what a lowlife. I don't have any respect or energy left to comment or worry about him. He's gonna get hit by the karma train if he stays with her. My ex-wife, someone I don't even recognize anymore, is making it easier for me to move on. Last week, the court-appointed date of our marriage's dissolution finally arrived. I hadn't been served any papers, and her opportunity to fight me for anything we hadn't listed on the agreements had passed. When we were still going to try again, I was able to keep my entire 401k. No spousal support, no, I didn't have any extra debt tied to her, no lawyers, no court, and no more dealing with her. At the end of the day, I blocked her number from my phone. The next day, 7 of my closest friends threw me a divorce party, and 6 of them were friends of ours. They posted on Snapchat throughout the night. It was a celebration worth documenting, and it earned them all a social media block from my ex. I added more debt to my name, and I didn't need any legal help or court involvement. I didn't want to deal with this person ever again. At the end of the day, I blocked her number from my cell phone. The next day, 7 of my closest friends, 6 of whom were friends of the both of us, threw me a divorce party, which they posted on Snapchat throughout the night. It was truly a celebration worth documenting, and it earned every single one of them a complete social media block for my ex-wife. A few of them even sent some nasty texts. Her maid of honor was at my divorce party, and she wants nothing to do with her ever again. I'm having one final internal struggle, so maybe someone can offer some insight. Back during the day of obsession, when I was scouring her digital footprints, I stumbled upon the fact that she had been sleeping with a man from her hometown. While all of this was going on, the thing is, this guy is an old flame of hers, but he has a wife and a kid at home. I truly struggle with whether or not I need to find a way to make sure the wife knows. I haven't said anything and I feel ashamed. I haven't been able to wrap my head around the idea of destroying a family. I'm trying to figure out if I should tell her, if I should just keep it to myself, or if I should talk to someone. This whole situation is making me feel pretty sick to my stomach, and I'm having some bad dreams. Any advice would be great. Update. Hello again, everyone. In 17 days, it will be the 2nd anniversary of my D-Day. Honestly, when I go back and read the previous posts I wrote, I can honestly say I never thought I'd make it this far. In terms of the amount of time that has gone by and the healing of the pain, burden, hurt, and depression I felt because of my ex, I'm amazed. I've been doing better since my ex-wife's awful actions. I've gotten messages from a lot of you asking for an update, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. Hopefully this will be my last update about what's happened since the divorce became official. If you're just joining the conversation now, here's a little background. It'll give you the lowdown on what's been going on since the divorce was finalized in February 2019. If you like being shocked, surprised, or appalled, check out the posts below. It's been a while since my last update, but a lot has happened since then. It's honestly pretty shocking how someone can act so appallingly after a divorce. I did my best to cut them out of my life after the divorce was finalized in February 2019. But, let's be real, that's easier said than done. I didn't talk to her or anything. But every now and then, I'd see a post from one of her distant family members that I hadn't blocked yet, or a friend would tag her in something. They might accidentally mention something they saw on a mutual friend's Snapchat or something like that. All of my true friends did their best to keep these types of updates to themselves, but some news was too big to hold back. The first big piece of news came in May of 2019, when one of my best friends called me to tell me that my ex-wife was getting remarried to a guy from Tennessee. Wait, what? Yeah, it was true. My friend's husband had yet to block my ex. My friends tried to keep quiet about the stuff they saw on Snapchat, but some news was too big to hold back. The first big piece of news came in May 2019, when one of my best friends called me to tell me that my ex-wife was getting remarried to a guy from Tennessee. Wait, what? Yeah, it was true. My friend's husband had yet to block my ex-wife on Facebook and was able to take screenshots of the events that led up to the big news. This all took place between March and July 2019. Apparently, my friend and her new boyfriend didn't last long after the divorce was finalized. I don't know the specifics about that or how it ended. I kind of wish I did, but it's not surprising. In April, a series of Facebook status updates hinted at divine intervention and a new romance. Then, out of the blue, in July, she posted a simple pic with a caption on her wall. The pic was of her with some random guy, and apparently, they didn't know each other or have any connection. The pic was taken in a courthouse, and it showed them standing together. Back in April, a bunch of status updates on Facebook hinted at everything happening for a reason and that she was falling in love with someone. Then, out of the blue, in July, she posted a simple picture and caption on her wall. The picture was of her and some random guy, and none of them knew or had heard of him. They were standing in a courthouse holding hands and rings on fingers, holding up what must have been a marriage certificate. She geotagged the picture in California, proudly updated it with her new last name, and wrote something like, "Excited to start the rest of my life with such an amazing man. Feeling so blessed. Look out, Tennessee. Here we come." Dramatic pause. I know that this entire story sounds far-fetched, but, back to my first post, this may all seem too good to be true, but I can't offer any other proof besides saying I'm telling the truth. Some of you might not believe me, but I hope you trust me after reading this far. I felt I needed to warn you before going on. I just couldn't handle everyone's curiosity. I reached out to one of my ex's wife's cousin and I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. But first I should mention that I'm writing the truth. I hope you can trust me. I felt I had to warn you before going on, because I was really curious about the situation. I reached out to one of my ex-wife's cousins, with whom I got along pretty well, to get the rest of the story. She told me her new husband was someone she had met online and had been talking to for a few months over the phone, text, etc. Apparently, they both fell hard and fast for one another, and he proposed to her on a phone call. She said yes, and they simply couldn't wait. Within a week of the proposal, she made a serious attempt to inform her family and invite them to attend the wedding, which took place in a very random. It was a town about 2 hours away from our hometown, and for some reason, I don't know, he flew out to California. They got married on a Saturday, which also happened to be the first time they met face-to-face. Now they were man and wife. The cousin said that not one person from her family attended the courthouse wedding. I'm wondering if it was because they didn't have enough time to plan or if they just didn't think it was important enough to go. They got married without any kind of ceremony, which I'm sure, I can't believe it. Sunday was spent packing a moving truck with all of her belongings, and they left for Tennessee on Monday. I've heard this story from so many people by now that I know it's true, but it was unbelievable at the time. If only he knew. I'm sure he would have had the presence of mind to not get married in California, a no-fault state where he could fall into the same situation. I was facing her, but hopefully he was just unaware, not intentionally ignoring me. I did my best to shake the idea of both of them from my mind, but I found solace in knowing they were moving far away so I wouldn't run into her again. Summer came and went in 2019, but right in the middle of fall, another bombshell. While scrolling through Instagram, a video popped up of my ex. My wife was holding a plate in front of her dad. He covered his eyes with his hands before I could even think about what I was seeing. I saw that there was a single cookie with blue frosting on the plate. My wife's voice came through, counting down 3, 1, "It's a boy." As her father uncovered his eyes, I realized it was a gender reveal video. Why am I seeing this? Her mother had just created an Instagram account, completely public, and posted this video of her husband's excitement. Apparently, Instagram's algorithm thought I'd like to see this video from someone I may know. I completely lost it. That was actually a really bad set of days and sleepless nights. My wife's voice came through, counting down 3, 1. It's a boy. Her dad uncovered his eyes. It was a gender reveal video. Why am I seeing this? Her mom had just created an Instagram account, completely public, and posted this video of her husband's excitement. Apparently, Instagram's algorithm thought I'd like to see this video from someone I may know. I completely lost it. That was actually a really bad set of days and sleepless nights. The sick feeling I had was a mix of disgust, pain, frustration, and even a bit of jealousy. It's one of my great aspirations in life to become a father, and had all of this not happened on our previous timeline, this very well could have been the time that we had a child together. Could have been my child. I could have been the one becoming a father. I'm 32 years old now. I thought I'd be one by now, much less on a path towards having a... I'm a grown man, and I know I've got time to find someone I love and be happy with. But I can't stop comparing where I am in life to where I thought I'd be by now. I'd rather be in my position than be the soon-to-be dad I imagine. I bet the baby is already born by now. I've been lucky. I've noticed that the people around me haven't heard anything either way. I know it's better to not know than to know the bad news, but I can't help but wonder. The good news is that when I really think about it, there are more and more days when I don't think about her or her messed up life. I consider that progress. There are still bad days which are made exponentially worse because of the stay. I know I'm lucky to have the flexibility to work from home, but I have to admit, I miss the gym. I've been trying to visit my parents as much as possible, but it's tough. I'm grateful for the days when I don't think about her at all, but there are still some pretty rough days when I can't stop thinking about her and the mess of her life. I miss the gym, but I've been going home to visit my parents as much as I can. I know we're all in this together, and it's not something I'm going through alone. When I start feeling hopeful, I think back to the early days after my D. I thought I'd never make it through that, but I did. I'll make it through this tough time too, one day at a time, one moment to the next if I have to. But time moves forward, even if it seems to be moving slowly. Thanks for taking the time to read this and catch up on what's happened. I want to end by saying I'm very grateful I want to thank all of you who commented, messaged, and encouraged me through this whole thing. I can say for sure that the strength of this community saved me, encouraged me, and gave me another shot at living a happy life after avoiding a dismal existence. Thank you, and here's to another 2 years of surviving and thriving. Update 4. It's been 3 years now since D-Day and more than a year since my last post. This last year has been the first where I've been able to finally focus on me. I don't have an update on my ex. I don't have any updates on my ex-wife or her situation because I've gone completely no contact with her and her family. I've even muted and blocked SL and mutual friends of ours to avoid getting any unwanted information. I knew from past experiences that keeping anything related to her or her family off my social media was going to help. It's given me the best shot at focusing on my life and not getting bogged down in the past. But, man, staying out of contact with her family was a real challenge. They were my family until she did what she did, and I loved some of them like family. It was tough to let go of those relationships, especially since it wasn't fair. But it was necessary. I know this strategy is working for me and benefiting me because as time goes on, there are far more days where I don't think about her at all versus when I do. Even if I do think about her now, it's more of a thank God I dodged the crap storm than anything to do with sorrow or pain this last year during the pandemic. I made a big career change and started my own independent tech support and IT system design consulting business. It was a leap of faith, but it paid off. I landed a few contracts pretty quickly, including 2 government organizations here in my county. It's been a lot of work, but both contracts have been renewed for another 12 months, and I don't see any signs of slowing down. I'm working for myself, so I have the freedom to make decisions for myself. I don't have to answer to anyone but myself, and it feels great. I'm really proud of the work I'm doing for my clients. I've been feeling so much more confident and in control of my life. I'm more at ease with the present and future, and I'm really enjoying my work life. My finances are doing great, and I'm feeling more at ease with the past. I'm in better shape than I've been in a long time, and I'm feeling good about myself. The only thing I'm a bit worried about is my general lack of trust in people, especially when it comes to romantic relationships. This made it easy for me to leave my job and start my own business. I don't need anyone but myself to get the job done, and I always do it right. But when it comes to romance, I don't really feel that way anymore. I'm good on my own. After trying online dating for a bit, I realized that most people on there are just broken. I figured this out after 3 dates. I went on 3 or 4 dates, and they were all pretty disappointing. The women weren't looking for anything serious, even though their profiles made it seem like they were. They just wanted attention from men. I don't think any of those dates were real. I don't think any of those dates were talking to me at the time, which made me feel like I was condoning their playing the field. I've had enough of that for one lifetime. That I don't mean to sound disrespectful of any woman or that I've taken a pill or I'm going my own way, that there's a huge part of me that yearns for that connection and intimacy, and I desire to share I'm not going to let just anyone into my life, even if I feel that way. I'm willing to be patient and do the work to improve my life and keep an open mind about love. I have this annoying inner monologue that keeps reminding me that I'm 34, and I should have a wife and kids by now, and be living a happy life like all my other friends who are paying mortgages, going on trips, doting over their children, and living their best lives. But what do I have? Money in the bank? Does that make you feel better about your life? This is something I obviously need to keep working on, but I know that setting myself unrealistic deadlines isn't what I need right now. For now, I'm just grateful to have the life I'm leading. I'm beyond blessed to not be living a different version of my life with my ex. I'm doing better, and I'm thankful for that. I'm grateful for my life and for not being with my ex-wife anymore. I'm hopeful that if I keep putting myself first and making the most of my days, no matter what happens, I'll be able to look back and say that I'm proud of who I am and that I made the most out of being dealt a pretty bad hand to start with. Thank you all for your time, advice, support, and words of wisdom. I wouldn't have made it without you.